Most employees spend their first few months at a new company trying to make a good first impression. They show up early, work hard, build relationships, and learn the ropes. Organizations do the same. The onboarding is polished, the culture looks great, and everyone seems invested in your success. But what happens when the honeymoon period ends? What happens when the real culture starts to reveal itself? Today's guest believes the moment arrives on day 91. Hill spent years on the front lines of HR and employee relations, witnessing workplace realities that most employees never get to see. His new book, The 91st Day, explores what really happens inside organization when the performance ends and the truth begins. Nate, welcome to Corporate Elements.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great. I'm excited. Before we dive in into the book itself, let's start with your journey.
Perfect. All right. So, simple journey for me. I graduated college all the way back in 2015, and I thought that I was going to be getting the perfect HR job right out of school. That's always what I wanted to do. I'm going to apply. And of course, I hear back from nobody. So I hear nothing back, no feedback, no nothing. So I was like, okay, so maybe it's not that easy to get into human resources. So I'm going to go ahead and choose jobs that I work in that all embody pieces of human resources. So, for example, I started working at an airline, a jet airline where I'm learning how to deal with people who are uptight, angry, in a rush, may not be their perfect selves at the moment. Working in car insurance, similar thing where people are trying to negotiate disputes and to negotiate, what payments are given out, for a car accident. So that's a lot of things that happen in HR as well. And then kind of working the pieces of it. So starting out as a HR coordinator and then working in benefits and trying to get all these certain parts. And it leads me to the 91st day, which is what my book is about, is a role that I had, where I was the only sole HR manager doing everything HR for a company that had no idea and had no idea what HR essentially was. They just know they needed an HR person in there. So they hired me into that role, and my goodness, was it chaos. I always say my first day was everyone else's 91st day there. So
You mentioned in the book that there were some moments that made you think someone needs to write about this. And before this, you had worked in various different organizations and different professions. Why write a story driven book instead of another HR guide filled with framework and best practices?
yeah, so like you mentioned before, this, when I was at this place, I said, there is so much juicy stories in this place that this needs to be a Netflix television show because of all the chaos that was happening. And I said, I'm not a producer, I'm not a video editor, so let's go ahead and read a book about it. So what led that is just because when it showed that this company showed what could happen if there is no human resources or there is no culture involved within this company just because of all the chaos that was happening. I mean, on my first day, I walk into an office full of filing cabinets and paper all over the place, where I couldn't even tell, what was an I-9 form versus a W-2 form and what are those things. So and then meeting the managers, there was a manager once who, sat in the front of the room and had six desks facing her so that way she can see everything that was going on, seeing people's keystrokes and all that. I'm reading files about stories about racist language being used and then being dismissed because, it was used in a casual form where it's like, oh, if it's casual, it's okay. So there's all these chaos that was happening. And that's what led me to, be like, there's got to be a book about how, not necessarily how I was able to form an HR department from scratch, but the process and the story as I live it week by week. So every chapter is another week that the main character, his name is Alex in the book, goes through each week and everything that comes across. So it's not like a how-to guide, not a how to do HR, but like, oh my gosh, look what happened. This is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm going to do about it. This is how I'm going to fix it. And let's see if it works a few weeks from now. I don't know if it's going to work, but we'll find out. So it's kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah. Um, I was reading about your profile and I found that you spent years seeing things employees never get to see. And what's something HR professionals know about workplace culture that will genuinely surprise most employees? And what's that biggest myth about HR?
Good question. So I'd say the biggest myth about HR is they're just there to get people in trouble and to fire people and annoy them with all these training modules just because they feel like they have to. What's the point? Why are we paying these people? salaries. Why is HR team being 8 people that we have to spend $1 million or $2 million of our company budget on if they're just doing something that we feel we could do? What the COO or anyone else can think that they can do themselves because okay, I could stay with compliance. I can read this list. That's not a problem. But the myth is that we are here to help the culture and we are actually on the employee side too. The most common myth I hear all the time is HR is there to protect the company and that's it. But what I say whenever I'm leading an HR function, as I say, is that, basically this is your company. I am here to help you. I cannot protect you as a company until I protect the employees first. Because if I have an in with the employees and I have a good relationship with the employees, I can stop someone who you love from quitting. I could stop toxic behavior that's happening in there before you even know it. Treat me as like your resource. Be like, you don't have to waste your time doing this. I can do it for you, or our team can do it for you. And we're just here to kind of help you out, not necessarily be there.
Speaking of toxic behavior, I have personally noticed that micromanagement, for example, which is very frustrating from every employee's point of view. Now that post COVID, we are working from home. This remote culture, like leaders are and managers are like constantly calling and asking people to be on their toes, even if they are like having lunch or they are busy somewhere. Because obviously you're at home. What does toxic workplace look like before anyone is willing to admit it's toxic?
I would say it all starts with trust. Trust is the most important thing when it comes to a relationship in your personal life as well as your work life. When there is no trust between an employee and a manager, it is a dead relationship before it even starts. I would tell the employee to start running away and find something else because, that is not for you. You don't want a manager micromanaging you. If they're micromanaging you, it's because one, they don't trust you, or two, their boss above them does not trust you. Oftentimes, bosses that micromanage are being micromanaged themselves by their next level up. I see that happen all the time, and that's where the toxicity starts. That's what I will say. And once you keep that going on and you start micromanaging and everything like that, that's when it leads to being a huge problem.
I agree. It is the tone at the top which basically cripples down and it affects everyone till the bottom. Have you ever seen leadership believe everything is fine while the culture was quietly falling apart underneath them? Because we have also done episode on quiet quitting where people before leaving or resigning in their head they resign first, they start disengaging.
The quiet quitting culture. That's exactly what that is. It's disengaging from the start. I have sat in rooms with an executive board that says we are making so much money. We have no problems here. What there's no bad culture here. What are they talking about? They're just complaining. Clearly, that if this employee is still here, there must be a reason. Maybe I guess we're paying them well or, they feel they're totally fine. I see that all the time and I try to say, yes, you may be making money now. However, the money that you're spending on recruiting costs because everyone's quitting after that 90-day period. That's when they start the quiet quitting process because you just kind of left them to dry. That's when the expense starts. That's when it's a little crazy. So oftentimes also managers try to think that it's not toxic because it's not toxic in their mind. There are a lot of managers there from like the 90s who've been there in the 90s work culture where, yeah, work is prioritized. You don't go on vacation a lot. I had, just to share a story, a manager owner of a company who was basically saying, I would not want to work remote. So therefore, I'm not going to let my employees work remote. Taking vacation stresses me out. So I'm not going to want to take 3 weeks vacation. So I'm not going to give my employees 3 weeks vacation. And if you try to shape the company by how your vision of things are, it may not be the vision of other employees too. That's why HR comes in and kind of shows you the facts. Be like, hey, we did an employee survey. And 25% of people in the company are satisfied with the vacation policy, which means we have a problem. We have this problem, we have that problem. You're showing numbers and all this type of things. So it's super important to kind of just show them the data, I guess, at the end of the day and kind of stop that from happening.
I agree. The feedback, like we also have this yearly feedback, which is we believe that at the operations, at the support staff, or at the business level, that it is anonymous, but the genuine feedback is always given. One of the most fascinating ideas in the book is that managers can accidentally become the villain in someone else's story. And what's the most common thing managers do that drives employees absolutely crazy without realizing it?
I would say would definitely be the micromanaging like we talked about earlier. I think they're trying to be helpful. And this is sometimes when I have a chat with a manager. I have a manager, yeah, I spoke with a manager when I worked in employee relations, who was saying my employees aren't happy with me. They're talking behind my back, and I ask, what are your practices? What do you do? He says, I want them to be amazing. I want them to be the best they could possibly be. So I'm listening on every single phone call they're making. I'm monitoring to see what exactly they're saying in every email I have them CC me on because out of the goodness of my heart, I want to make sure that they are the best employees they could be. So in the manager's mind, that's not toxic behavior. The manager
Mm,
mind, that's behavior that's going to help them become a better manager and help their employees. However, sometimes it's just not what it is from the employee side. So that employees becoming, I guess, the villain in the that manager is becoming the villain in the employee's mind because the employee's thinking, they don't trust me. They're out to get me. They're doing this because they don't like me. They don't like my work ethic. They don't think I work hard. They're not recognizing me. So it's the complete polar opposites are pulling away. So the relationship is being split apart when neither doesn't even realize it. And that's how the quiet quitting starts because they don't want to CC in the manager. Maybe he'll just fire me for not performing well. And that just ends up how it ruins the relationship at the end of the day. Also, what I've seen is humor. It can be kind of taken out of context. I had a story where there was a picture of an employee no, a picture of a client that the company was working with, and it was someone's face, and that person's face just happened to look like one of the employees in their department. So they would kind of point and laugh at it when they're trying to make a joke, being like, "Oh my God," let's say, for example, "This person looks just like Robbie. Let's go laugh at that." But you as Robbie is feeling like, "Oh, I don't like that they're laughing at me. Is it my appearance? I know they like me, but is it that?" So a manager may be trying to make a lighthearted joke about things without even realizing that may not be funny for everybody in the room. Everyone wants to be in with the manager and have good relationships with this manager. And so they kind of laugh along anyways, that fake laugh that's happening. So the employee who's being laughed at is thinking they're bullying me. I need to go to HR and report a bullying claim when it was really not that manager's intention. So that's when HR again comes in to try to mediate that relationship and be like, hey, this person doesn't like the way you're doing this. Try to find something else funny. I'm sure there is.
I agree because earlier when you spoke about trust, if I trust my manager, I can openly tell him that I'm not comfortable with the joke or with the comment. I might take it personally. And also, there is a whole different perception in the manager's head. That is the whole different story he's carrying on. And obviously, he has decided the goal and objective for an employee rather than having communication, discussing, or having a weekly or monthly connect. He himself has given few objectives and goals which are like totally not aligned or uh, is in disagreement with the employee. From the growth point of view, many of our listeners are professionals who are trying to build successful careers. If someone wants long term career success, should they spend more time impressing their manager or understanding the culture they are actually working in?
A very good question. I would say it would be exploring the culture that you're actually in. Use those 90 days that you have, the probationary period. That's why I kind of called the 91st day because the first 90 days are always a probationary period where either side can kind of leave and decide this isn't going to work out without any bad feelings or anything like that. I would take the opportunity to, obviously pay attention to what they're showing you and make sure that they're continuing it after that 90-day point. Make sure that you are having a good relationship with your manager the same way you are. And the best way I can do it is if I'm giving advice to the employee side, because the company side I can give the same advice to, but from the employee side is to be yourself on day one. Don't be the polished type of I have to make a good first impression. I have to, shake the hand. I have to, do all these things and go above and beyond and do, 10 projects as opposed to the normal 5 that's required because you're just setting yourself up for failure after that 90 days and you're exhausted of being this fake person. You just want to be yourself, which you should be at work. Then it leads to catastrophe. I would say be yourself, and you yourself are professional and will make a good first impression regardless because you are here, working at this job. You have many, many days to make a good first impression. You can always make a second, third, fourth, fifth impression on anybody and everything like that. So start being your true self on day one. If something bothers you, feel free to go ahead and to let your manager know on day 3. Don't wait until this review process or don't wait until you get to know them a little bit better to make to make a complaint or anything like that, or if you need more help on things. So that's the most important ways to kind of invest in yourself to, I guess, sort of impress your manager by being yourself and immersing yourself in the culture. If the culture changes after those 90 days, then you have a problem. You have to start considering and questioning whether you accepted the right position. And feel free to call it out to the manager too, or HR, being like, hey, the first 90 days were fantastic. The first 3 months, I was fine. I was having fun. I was learning. And then all of a sudden, now I'm being dropped off. What's going on? Let them explain it out a little bit and see if they can kind of help you out too. And I encourage companies also to be your true self as well. If you run a company and you're a business owner or a business leader, be yourself on day one too. If you are a cool dude, you know, at the end of the day, feel free to be that cool dude. Maybe be an adult for like the first 5 minutes, but then after that, invite them to lunch. So, for example, on my first day when I worked at this job, was I attended the Christmas party, even though I was only there for the first day. I attended the Christmas party and I was doing selfies, I was dancing, I sang karaoke. I was just being myself, the new HR person, on day one at this bar, and everyone loved that because they got to see, oh, we don't have to bypass all this HR stuff, fancy, I have to be impressive. This guy's really cool. I think I can talk to him, and it led to tremendous success. I always recommend going to those Christmas parties, especially on day one.
Yes, I do remember when I started early, my first job. Within the first week, I was taken out for a dinner party. So it was kind of an icebreaker.
Hmm.
People from different department or who were on leave, I got to know them. So I got to know that who were the right point of contact and for what purpose and for what reason I can reach out to them, which clubs they are into, what hobbies or interest do they have. So on that basis, I got to, you know, create a bonding on the very first week rather than waiting for things to happen. I totally echo what you said. What signals tell you a workplace is worth investing your career in?
What was that again? Can you say that again?
So if I'm in the workplace environment, what are the signs that I need to look into the workplace that I will find it more comfortable? What will signals tell you? Or what will tell me that, okay, this is not for me and it's time for leave?
I would say almost a summary of what I think the theme of the podcast was the trust. If you notice your manager's not trusting you within those first 90 days and they're micromanaging you, run, run, run. That's the best way I try to say it. Or try to do your best to focus on rebuilding that trust too. I find that important also. But there are a lot of signs to realize that, hey, maybe this isn't the job for me. Or maybe this isn't the company for me. If you are seeing a lot of turnover, if anything like that, I encourage everybody who starts out new in a job is to have meetings with other people within your team and have meetings with other people outside of your team. Have a conversation. If you're working in marketing, have a conversation with the finance person, have a conversation with another marketing person, have a conversation with the CEO. I swear, if you send an invite saying, I would love to have lunch with you, and it's not a humongous company, even if it's not, they will take that initiative and they'll meet with you. And they will reveal things as long as you're being cool and understanding. You mentioned your story, kind of like, how I'm doing here, your summary of how you got here, what plans you have. It is super important because a lot of times, and this is what I did too, I had lunch with the CEO of a company I worked at one-on-one, and I was telling him things about HR that he had no idea existed. That goes on in his own company that he owns. So it gave him some insight, and then he was able to use me as a resource and call me in whenever decisions are being made because he goes, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. But even if you're new in your career, you taking the initiative and meeting with people, that's forming relationship, that's networking. If the current job that you're working is not working for you and you're not enjoying it, feel free to send a message to, Robbie from Corporate Elements if you want to be a podcast star and be a co-host. So feel free to say, hey, Robbie, I want to be a co-host with you. What can I do? And maybe Robbie will sit with you and teach you how to do it and all that type of stuff. So it's just forming those relationships with your coworkers. It will lead you to success in the long run. So that way, maybe if this position isn't for you, you can try something else within the same company. You don't have to quit. So that's also good.
Yes, I agree because I also believe in what you just said because I remember once I got bored with my current job responsibility and I just requested manager uh, for a catch up and I told him that are there any upcoming projects that I can look into? Just a random conversation and I had an opportunity to travel because of that. It was like you said, just express what you think and it really works. So yes, let's do a rapid fire round.
Boy, I'm ready.
Recognition or compensation?
I will say compensation.
A trust or talent?
Trust, 1000%. Theme of the episode, trust, trust, trust.
Loved it. Remote or office?
I will go remote, but I'll throw a keyword in there, a sneak in the thing of hybrid. I find hybrid the best because you get the best of both worlds. And it also depends on your industry too.
Biggest interview red flag.
What was that again?
Biggest interview red flag.
If you Oh, they offer you the job on the spot. Don't take it. Don't take it. We'll see if they'll wait a few days. That's the most important thing is definitely if they say they meet with you for 5 minutes and like, "You're hired. Come on, join us." Give them a few days. You want them to say that there's competition, that there's 3 more interviews this week. That's how you know you wanna make sure you're the best.
One leadership trait every manager needs.
Trust again, but I will say that the one leadership trait is patience. That is the most number one thing. In this world of instant AI where everything's happening so fast, managers are expecting the same from their human beings that they're working with and expecting someone to learn the job perfectly within 2 days or whatnot. Oftentimes they run out of patience. They be like, we made a mistake. I don't think this is the person's right fit. So I think it's important to have patience with your employees, nurture them, grow them, tend them. Don't just start growing put a seedling and it's not growing within 3 days and throwing it out, thinking it's not going to germinate.
Right. Yeah. I can just picture, something from the past. Most overused corporate buzzword.
Put all our eggs in one basket. Why are we doing what are we collecting eggs? We're not farmers, we're in an office. You know, so
It's not easy.
we're just trying to put that, or I hate when people say bandwidth or words like portal and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I can't stand that freaking talk. It just drives me up the wall when people say, "Oh, this portal, that portal," and oh my gosh, it drives me nuts.
For me, the one buzzword was caveat.
Caveat, yes, that's a good, that's a good one too.
Best career advice you have ever received.
Best career advice I've ever received. I had a manager who told me that he has pieces of life advice, and that turned into my career advice. So I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate his 3 keys to success. Is 1, always have a valid passport. Number 2, never refuse a free meal. And number 3, don't let anyone get in the way of your dreams, including yourself. I always
Wow.
love that. So if you don't think I see all the times where employees, they say, I've been working as a finance, coordinator for 5 years now. I really love to be a director or a manager, but I can't do that. I can't be a manager. My manager yells at me sometimes. I can't do that. But you're the one stopping yourself. Apply and show and demonstrate yourself. Cut a promo of yourself at an interview and do it. You can do it. That's why I always say all the time. It drives me nuts when people don't when they know they have the potential, yet they get in their own way. So the best piece of advice I can give you is don't let anyone get in your way, including a manager and including yourself.
Spot on. One book every manager should read.
A good book that one manager should read. I would say it's a book called High Hanging Fruit. And it's not necessarily a manager per se type of book. However, it's about the founder of Zico Coconut Water, and it shows him how he built a company from scratch from a vacation when he went on vacation and drank coconut water and said, "We need to bring this to the USA and around the world." And it was just really cool to see him build the company and kind of lead the way. But I'm going to put a little side thing into your question. If there's a movie to watch about leadership, it would be Apollo 13. Or if you're reading, or maybe not just a movie, but reading about the space program on that flight. And look into Gene Kranz. He's my favorite leader of all time because he had trust in his people and he relied on them for the information that he needed to make the big decisions. He didn't have to go into econ and do it himself or go into medical and do it himself. He literally just took it all in. These are the facts from his people and made the decisions that got those astronauts home safe.
Yeah, that was powerful, Nate. Now we are on the final question. Imagine someone finishes your book at midnight and has to go to work 6 hours later. What's that first thing they're going to notice that they have never noticed before?
I think they're going to notice the environment of their office. That's what I'm going to see. What I think. I think they're going to walk in and see, like, why are these walls like this? Why is the room set up like this? Why is the corporate chart set up like this? Is it because of efficiency, or is it because of a lack of trust, or is it because they're of micromanaging? What is going on? Looking into also if it's a manager who's reading this book, looking into their own management skills. Remember when I brought up the story about, the humor? Like they'll maybe think about themselves, like maybe do I have something posted in our room? Am I saying something to my employees that's may not be right? Are my employees about to write a petition to get rid of me? Let me find out. Let me hold a meeting with my staff and just check in. A human meeting. You're gonna read a lot of stories in this book that are a little crazy, such as someone bringing in a bodyguard to the office, to ones that are helpful. Where you're learning about leadership and people identifying that everybody else who they're working with are leaders, not just the ones with the title. It's the person who sat with me when I was, new here after a week. They sat with me after work up until 8 o'clock at night. There's one employee who I work with, my coworker, to make sure that I was successful. That was more of a leader than my person who says they have a leader on their title. So it gives you a lot of perspective on all these certain important things. It's a good book, and I'm not much of a reader, and I'm not saying this just because it's my book, but I would enjoy this read, just because it's a story, not a how-to textbook, type style where it's like, here's a story and here's a lesson behind it. It's just literally going through it with this main character until the end. It ends at day 91, and you're able to see the successes, the failures, everything. So it's fantastic. That was a good question.
Thank you for joining us and sharing the stories, lessons, and workplace truth behind the 91st day. For our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, tell us where can they find you and read about your work.
Of course, they can find me at www.the91stday.com. The website has everything from the description to where you can order the book, a little bit more about me, and there's a contact form about me. So if you have any questions about HR in general that you don't want to ask your HR person, feel free to message me. Whatever country, whatever company you're in, I'm happy to help you, give you some anonymous advice on the side about, if someone's telling you the truth, or if you need help with a resume, or you have a situation that's going on, feel free to reach out. And I respond to everyone. I do it for fun. So this is my side hobby. So I love it.
That's great. I'm sure our listeners will find it very helpful and they'll reach out to you. And for everyone listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, be sure to check out the 91st day and connect with Nate online.
Awesome.